crucial health care vote as Senator John McCain returns to the Capitol for the first time since his brain cancer diagnosis. A request to die at home. The mother of terminally ill Charlie Gard returns to London court, plus reaction from the Vatican. Changes at the Temple Mount. Israel removes metal detectors that cause tensions as Muslim boycotts continue. And the Camino de Santiago. On his feast day, we travel to Spain, following the way of St. James. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, July 25th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A showdown on Capitol Hill today as the Senate votes thumbs up to begin a debate on the Republican health care plan. This comes as Senator John McCain makes an emotional return to cast his vote for the bill that would also defund Planned Parenthood. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi joins us with the story. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. This was supposed to just be a procedural vote, but it was a very dramatic, tense moment as senators sat in their seats, not sure how it was going to turn out. It even took a special visit from Vice President Mike Pence to break the tie vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative and the motion is agreed to.
Vice President Pence's fourth tie-breaking vote, U.S. history's 259th. The razor-thin vote opens the door to repealing Obamacare and defunding Planned Parenthood. This is only the start of 20 hours of debate and endless chances to propose changes. Republicans didn't just need Vice President Mike Pence's vote. We also witnessed the emotional return of Senator John McCain. This is McCain's first time back since being diagnosed with an aggressive type of brain cancer. The former prisoner of war says the health care bill will likely fail unless both parties work together. He slammed Republican leaders for trying to force it through, like Democrats did with Obamacare.
We tried to do this by coming up with a proposal behind closed doors in consultation with the administration, then springing it on skeptical members, trying to convince them that it's better than nothing. That it's better than nothing? Asking us to swallow our doubts and force it past a unified opposition. I don't think that's going to work in the end, and probably shouldn't.
You may remember for weeks and weeks, Senate leaders and the White House have been urging Republican senators to vote yes. Republican leader Mitch McConnell had to pull the bill previously because there just wasn't enough support.
We can do better than Obamacare. We have a responsibility to the American people to do that. Today's vote to begin debate is the first step.
Now senators will be taking to the Senate floor to speak for and against the GOP health care plan. And Lauren, we'll be watching the more than a dozen Republicans who have opposed or criticized earlier drafts of the bill because the passage of this health care bill depends on them.
Tell us some of the remaining sticking points.
Some Republicans are worried about the estimates from the Congressional Budget Office estimating that more than 20 million more Americans will be uninsured by 2026 if these various GOP health care bills go forward. The U.S. bishops tonight calling for unity, asking Republicans and Democrats to work together on reforming health care.
That is the theme there on Capitol Hill. We'll see if they can do it. Correspondent Jason Calvi at the Capitol. President Trump is praising the Senate for moving forward on health care, calling today's vote a big step. In a rare news conference, the president denounced decisions made by Attorney General Jeff Sessions regarding the election. He is the first U.S. senator to endorse his candidacy. Correspondent Mark Irons joins us from the White House with more. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. The future of the nation's top law enforcement officer seems to hang in the balance tonight. President Trump says that he is very disappointed in Attorney General Jeff Sessions. At a joint press conference this afternoon in the Rose Garden with the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Trump fielded questions about Sessions' future after telling the Wall Street Journal he has not made up his mind as to whether he will fire him.
I told you before, I'm very disappointed with the Attorney General, but we will see what happens. Time will tell. Time will tell.
But the president's criticism of Sessions is drawing a fiery response from his colleagues in the Senate. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina says Jeff Sessions is one of the most decent people he's ever met in his political life. House Speaker Paul Ryan punted, saying the president gets to decide who his personnel is. The new White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci, says the president and Jeff Sessions need to work this thing out. Scaramucci is also addressing leaks in the White House, and according to a few media reports, he says the leaks upset him as a human being and as a Roman Catholic. Lauren?
Mark, the president is going to be in Ohio tonight for a rally. Do you think he's going to address this, or will he move on to something else?
Well, Lauren, the president will be having a Make America Great Again rally in Youngstown, Ohio tonight. The president won that state, but Youngstown is in a county he lost in the November election. Expect the president to continue his call for repeal and replace of Obamacare, which he has recently referred to simply as death.
Correspondent Mark Irons at the White House. In another struggle to pass legislation, the divided GOP is trying to finalize a fiscal budget. The president and Congress cannot rewrite the tax code without doing this. Joining us now is House Budget Committee Chairwoman Diane Black, a Republican from Tennessee who took the helm of the budget panel 6 months ago. Representative, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You are trying to get everyone, including leadership, to finish writing this budget. Hawks want to cut the deficit. Others want to curb Pentagon spending and cut food stamps. What is it going to take to bring everyone together?
Well, we are really very close right now because doing the budget over the last 5 months, we have worked with groups all the way across our conference to be sure that we were meeting their needs. And so when we put out a product, we really felt like we had done a good job to get to the sweet spot. And now it is a matter of just making sure that all of our members, over 240 members, that they really understand the direction that we're going.
But you didn't put the vote on the budget in the schedule that was released on Monday. Is there going to be a vote before the recess?
Well, we really hope that there will be. We're working very hard to make sure that we have the numbers that we need. One thing I can tell you is there are a lot of moving parts right now because we'll be hopefully leaving here on Friday with our jobs completed.
I don't want to put the screws to you here, Congresswoman, but I think that we're seeing with health care and we're seeing with tax reform and this budget and the debt ceiling that the Republican Party cannot govern. At least they can't in the first 7 months. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't agree with that because we here in the House, and that's really what I worry about, is the House. The Senate is the Senate. I don't work over in the Senate, but I do work here in the House. We've passed over 276 bills. Those bills are over in the Senate waiting to have action taken on them. Things like repealing Dodd-Frank, everybody wants that. I don't think Americans really even know about it. We have done our work over here, and we're continuing to do our work, and we hope that the Senate will do their work as well.
Do you think that this is going to affect, if there isn't some sort of legislation that is passed, that it's going to affect the House races coming up?
If we were able to pass our budget, and when we're able to pass our budget, we can show the American people that we're doing what we said we would do.
Very good. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to an update.
Thank you.
The president's son-in-law and advisor, Jared Kushner, returns to Capitol Hill for more questioning, this time from the House Intelligence Committee. Kushner says he will continue to cooperate as investigators look into Russia's interference in the 2016 election. He spoke to the Senate's intelligence panel yesterday and then told the media all of my actions were proper. And also on Capitol Hill, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort met with the Senate Intelligence Committee about Russia. The committee chairman offered to share a transcript of this interview with the Senate Judiciary Committee, which subpoenaed Manafort yesterday. A high-level United Nations official is calling for a formal end to an ongoing crisis at several holy sites in Jerusalem, saying that the conflict runs the risk of turning the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian political conflict into a religious one. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby joins us with details. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Around the world, foreign leaders are welcoming Israel's decision today to remove metal detectors from around the Temple Mount area and a major Islamic shrine in the old city of Jerusalem. Many hope it will bring peace after a series of violent events in the last 2 weeks. Palestinian protests continue across Jerusalem and the West Bank today. That despite Israeli soldiers removing recently installed metal detectors outside the entrance to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The top Muslim cleric in Jerusalem still refuses to enter the mosque. He's demanding Israel remove all added security, not just metal detectors. The ramped-up security follows the killing of 2 Israeli police guards in mid-July by an Arab gunman. Blaise Mishtal, a national security expert, saw the heightened security around Jerusalem firsthand in Israel last week.
In addition to the protest because of these metal detectors, then you had tensions ramping up in Jordan, where you had a Jordanian attack a guard at the Israeli embassy, and that guard ended up shooting the attackers.
He says the conflict centers on a site sacred to both Jews and Muslims.
Who owns this piece of land is extremely contested. On the one hand, it is referred to as the Jews, as the Temple Mount, where the synagogue stood, where the great Jewish temple stood. And the foot of that mount is the Western Wall, which is the holiest site for Judaism. But on top of that is Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site for Islam.
Many in the Muslim world say Israel is trying to expand control over the site under the guise of security. Israel denies that claim. The conflict in the Temple Mount almost spilled over into a diplomatic Israel-Jordan conflict. Jordan governs the Muslim Authority overseeing the 37-acre area. But Mishtal says both countries don't want a conflict among themselves. They're also working together on outside threats like ISIS and Iran. Lauren?
What's the U.S. saying about Israel's decision to take down these metal detectors?
Lauren, the American ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, hailed the Israelis' decision today for taking those down, saying they took speedy action to try and avoid a crisis with Jordan. Friedman says it's vital the United States collaborates regularly with both its allies, Israel and Jordan, to defuse the tension. Lauren?
National Security Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby, thank you. After ending a long legal battle to keep their son alive, the parents of baby Charlie Gard tell a judge that their last wish is to take their critically ill son home to die. And the Holy Father is asking the faithful to accompany them in prayer.
The Pope is praying for Charlie Gard at this moment, as well as his parents. Clearly, it's a time of immense suffering for them. The Pope is also asking that others join him in prayer so that they can find God's consolation and love at this moment.
The judge says it would be best if Charlie's parents and the hospital can agree on where he should spend his final hours. Charlie has a rare genetic condition and will die once his life support is removed. Father Francesco Giordano is the director of Human Life International's office in Rome. Father, what is the reaction in and around the Vatican to Charlie Gard's case?
Well, in and around the Vatican, it's quite evident that this case has a lot to do with the pro-life movement, and has, just as we know in the church and the pro-life movement, we know that all these issues that may seem like they're not connected are indeed connected. For example, we know that contraception is connected to abortion, and we know that even that abortion fundamentally is connected to a lack of respect, a lack of love for life. And this issue, what's happened to Charlie Gard, is very much connected to the euthanasia issue. You know, the living will, for instance, right now is being pushed here in Italy and elsewhere in Europe, all over, and that basically takes away the rights of the family to make decisions, to help. And indeed actually takes away the rights of the individual, because when the individual, in the case of a living will, signs the living will, he or she may not be feeling sick at the time, but then when the person feels sick, you know, that person might change his or her mind.
Pope Francis weighed in on Charlie's case and expressed his support for the parents, and the world paid attention. What do you think this is saying about the church's voice in public debate? How important is it?
The church's voice is very important, and we've seen this with this latest case, actually. I mean, just the Pope speaking up once or twice. I mean, he sent out a few tweeters as well and spoke at an Angelus. I mean, he didn't like speak excessively about it, but just those few words made a huge difference. And in fact, the pro-life movement here in Italy really moved for this case, and we were thanked by by Charlie Gard's parents. We were thanked by them for what we did. No other country in Europe spoke out as strongly as Italy did, for instance. And what's sad about the whole ending is that time was the issue. If they hadn't been fighting with the courts and had just kind of gone along with the treatments back in January, Charlie would be fine right now.
Yes, he could have possibly had a life. We had spoken to other people who had children who had similar issues, and they're alive today. You're absolutely correct. Father Francesco Giordano of Human Life International, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A warning for our viewers who may be in Rome this summer. Tourists visiting the Vatican will not be able to enjoy free-flowing water fountains to cool off in the scorching heat. There is a drought, and the Vatican says it's shutting off all of its fountains, including ones in St. Peter's Square, because of this drought. The church says it's doing its part to help Rome get through the crisis and highlight the Holy Father's teachings on the environment. Meteorologists say this spring was Italy's third driest in 60 years. The drought has put Rome at risk for drastic water rationing, a measure being considered later this week by authorities. Coming up, the immigration debate in America.
Every day there are people from Mexico or Central America that are trying to make their way up here.
We talked to Representative Cuellar, who lives on the border. The man charged in deaths of immigrants found in a Texas tractor trailer had his commercial driver's license suspended in April. The immigrants were discovered in a Walmart parking lot in San Antonio over the weekend. Passengers had color-coded tape for smugglers to identify when and where to drop them off, showing the sophistication of the human trafficking business. The tractor trailer originated in the border town of Laredo, Texas, and that's where my next guest is from. Joining me now is Congressman Henry Cuellar, a Democrat from Texas. His district covers a portion of San Antonio and Laredo. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
What is your reaction to this gruesome discovery?
You know, I was in San Antonio that night when this happened, and it's a very terrible situation that we see where every day there are people from Mexico or Central America that are trying to make their way up here, and they put their hands in the hands of these coyotes or the smugglers, and the smugglers and these coyotes have really, you know, it's a disregard for human life. That driver needs to be prosecuted to the extent of the law, but more importantly, they have to go after that smuggling organization.
You advocate securing the border, but say that immigrants deserve respect and fair treatment. So how does our immigration policy need to change so that things like this don't happen?
Well, you know, I want to see strong border security, but at the same time, when we have immigration, you know, at least let's have some sort of guest worker plan that if somebody wants to come over and work, then allow them to come work and then be able to return back to the families, because a lot of these people just want to make sure that they come over and work. And you know very well that there are a lot of industries, whether it's the ag area or whether it's the construction area or other type of seasonal type of industry, are short.
You are also against putting up a border wall. If that is not the solution, then what is?
I want to see technology. I want to work with the Mexicans to make sure that we secure the border and make sure that we have strong border security, but at the same time, Anybody that wants to come over legally to come work, let's have immigration reform to help address that issue.
You, unlike fellow Democrats, are against sanctuary cities, and those are the cities that refuse to comply with federal immigration laws. Why?
If people start looking at disagreeing with certain laws, then we're going to have a Swiss cheese type of effect where everybody will come up with an exception. I feel, you know, and I believe in full immigration reform, that I think we need to enforce the immigration laws. If we need to change them, let's change it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas.
Thank you so much.
Taking their concerns to Washington, a group of pro-lifers says it wants the U.S. to get back to its Christian roots and end abortion.
Many young people think, oh, abortion, that's about women's health care, that's about women's right, it's wonderful. Of course, it's not wonderful at all, because it's a taking of an innocent, preborn life made in the image and likeness of Almighty God. And unless we end abortion in America, abortion will be the end of America.
The group Defend Life marched outside the White House today, and they are on a one-week East Coast tour. The group's founder says he's very pleased with President Trump's pro-life work so far, and he now wants Planned Parenthood defunded. Up next, traveling the way of St. James, we'll talk to an EWTN crew who just wrapped up a pilgrimage known as the Camino. Today, we celebrate the feast of St. James the Apostle. He died a martyr in 44 AD. St. James is the patron saint of Spain. And every year, thousands of pilgrims walk to St. James in Santiago, Spain, to pray before his remains. The ancient pilgrimage is known as the Camino. A team from EWTN is documenting the journey of 36 men and women from all over the United States as they discover more about the apostle. They have chosen to walk the Portuguese route through 7 major cities. Joining us now is Colm Flynn, who is documenting the pilgrimage and is celebrating the feast of St. James in Santiago de Compostela. That's where the saint's remains are buried, according to tradition. Welcome to the program.
Hey Lauren, great to talk to you, and a very good evening from Santiago de Compostela.
You walked about 80 miles over 8 days. Wow. What did your pilgrims say about all of this?
I think there are 2 things that the majority of the pilgrims took from this. The first was learning how to pray again. It can be so difficult, as you know, and as I certainly know, when you're working in a very demanding career, you've all the distractions of social media and the world in general around you, to take time out, quiet time, and try and really pray. That's something that a lot of these young people have been finding difficult and have forgotten how to do in recent years. The second one, from all the pilgrims that I spoke to, is to pray but also to proclaim, because it's not easy being a young Catholic in today's world. You have the pressures are really mounted against you. So being surrounded by a lot of young people your own age in similar types of jobs who are young, intelligent, very smart, and who all have that shared faith, I think there's something really reaffirming about that. You know, it allows you to go back home into your job, and it makes you a little bit prouder of your faith. It makes you a little bit less afraid to say, you know what, I am a practicing Catholic and I'm very, very proud of that. So it was great to see all the young people from all over the United States, a lot of them from Texas, like this young couple here.
There's not a lot of youth that actually goes and practices the faith, or like go out there and say, you know what, I'm Catholic. Well, other faiths, they do that, and I think that's something that we should be doing more as Catholics.
Prayer is an essential part of the journey, and daily Mass was offered each day. Tell us how a typical day unfolded.
Well, Lauren, every day started extremely early. There was one day in particular where we started at 5:30 a.m. Not only was it pitch black, it was raining, and we were walking in silence, but we got through it, and again, that silence and that opportunity to pray was something that we don't get too often back home. After that, we'd walk for maybe 8 hours. It shouldn't have taken us 8 hours, but you have to remember that the Camino is not a race. Some people think it is, and there's speeding past you, you have to take your time and literally smell the roses as you go. Chat to your community, chat to your fellow pilgrims. So we walked for around 8 hours, and then we'd get to the town we were staying in. We would go straight into daily mass, we'd have adoration, and then there'd be an opportunity for the young people to go to formation or to go to confession.
And for our viewers who want to participate next year in the Camino, what advice can you give them to prepare physically and spiritually for the pilgrimage?
Get good walking shoes, first bit of advice, and get them early so you break them in, because just ask any of our crew here, walking for 80 miles with blisters is not a fun thing to do, and it makes the suffering a lot worse. The most important thing, though, I would say, is that, as I mentioned, the Camino is a lot of things to a lot of people, but one thing it certainly isn't is a race. You don't have to do it in a certain amount of time. Do it slowly, do it at a nice pace, take a lot of silent time to really pray like you haven't prayed for a long time, and talk to people along the way. There are fascinating people from all over the world who are doing it for lots of different reasons. Find out why and listen very carefully, because I think with the journey, with your prayer, talking to them, it will not only inspire you, but it will really help you to grow in your faith.
Colm Flynn with the EWTN Camino Pilgrimage. And that makes me want to buy a pair of walking shoes. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and I will see you again tomorrow. Good night, and God bless you.